Welcome everybody. We're here live under the Mets Radio. This is your host Tech here with a very special Skype exclusive interview with one of the great composers of film. This man, you've heard his music all over the world. This man also is an educator. He's a teacher, and definitely such a great guy. We will bring him on certainly none other than Paul Hertzog, who is an amazing film composer for such movies as Bloodsport with Jean Claude Van Damme, such as KickBoxer with Jean Claude Van Damme. Also, he's done movies. He's done movies also, composing movies for composing films in the music form such as Breathing Fire and also a movie called My Chauffeur. Those are more the not as famous known works of his, but still very important because it's a part of his life. He also just finished composing the music for the upcoming film, The Last Kumite, which will be coming out very soon, which we'll be talking about also. You can follow us on Under the Mats Radio at tech_UTMR on Twitter, or now it's called X. If you get a little lost with the app, because a lot of people do, you can follow us on Facebook and also on Instagram at underthematsradio.com. And once we're done this exclusive interview, I'm sure Paul will let you know how to reach out to him, follow his website, and if he uses any social media at all, because some people just don't use it, contrary to popular belief. All right, we're here live with the man himself, PH, Paul Hertzog. This man, you're a film producer, Paul. You're a film composer. You teach music. You teach English. You do so many great things. Want to thank you for your time here under the Mets Radio. How are you feeling today?
I'm fine. Sitting here in sunny California.
Oh, what part of California are you located?
Just north of Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. So what's the weather?
It's pretty nice. Probably about getting up towards 70 degrees later.
Okay.
Clear. No rain, no wind. Nice day.
Well, here in Baltimore, so 44, a little windy and sunny. So I think we'll trade if you don't mind. We get all the seasons here in the East Coast.
Yeah,
But thank you, Paul, for your time. Really do appreciate it. Let's start off with yourself, Paul. Growing up, what was your first introduction to music?
My mother was a piano teacher, and I started learning how to play piano when I was 4 years old and just kept going. My parents were classical musicians, and that's how I came up. When I was in high school, I got a university professor as a teacher. Got a whole lot better. And then I went off to college and discovered rock and roll and decided I wanted to go in that direction.
That's awesome.
So I did. After I got out of college, I had the bright idea of going to New York City to become a rock and roll musician, figuring that couldn't be too hard. So for the next probably 15 years, I struggled trying to make it any way I could. And almost everything that happened to me just kind of happened by accident, through meeting people and stumbling from one place to another. After about 5.5 years in New York, I moved to LA and started playing in recording situations. Started learning how to program synthesizers. Started getting jobs. Learned how to produce music, and just lucked into movies. Starting in about 1985. And boy, I was really lucky to land Bloodsport. Because who knew? Who knew what it would become? And 30 plus years after I did it, it's still going.
That's amazing. Is a good friend of mine, Ray, who better known as Zap from one of the original American Gladiators, had mentioned about having a horseshoe up your ass, and she always says her life similar to yours, where she just being a bodybuilder and everything, she just always end up being around the right people or meeting the right people. So I guess as she said, talking with her in a previous interview, like yourself, Paul, you always had the horseshoe, you know, around with you, or with you, where you was able to be around the right people. Uh,
Yeah.
from what you're saying so far, that it shows the dedication you had with music, with your parents having a background in music, growing up in music, and that you struggled, you said, for years in New York City. When you mentioned about the struggle, and a lot of people mention you see the success, but in order to be successful, there's a struggle with it as well. Talk to us briefly about some of the struggles you dealt with being in New York City, and trying to make it in music.
Well, at first I was trying to make it with a friend of mine who was living there, who induced me to come out and join him. And we had an original music band, and we cut some demos. We eventually got some producers to sign us to a deal, but then they couldn't sell us to the record company, so that kind of folded. I had to work dumb jobs to try and stay afloat. For 2 years, I drove a cab in New York City, believe it or
Wow,
not.
that's something.
Um, After about 3 years being there, I decided that I needed to make a living as a musician. So I started playing in a club band I played with for 2 years, and we made steady money. We weren't all that great, but in those days you could play cover songs in bars and make a living. And we got good enough to work pretty solidly, especially after the first year. And we did some traveling here and there, but it wasn't really going anywhere. And I decided I needed to get out of New York and move to LA. So I discovered that in New York, if you played in a club band, that's what you were. You were a club musician. You weren't an original musician. And all this music was starting to happen in New York with people like Talking Heads and Blondie, and all those bands were coming around that time. But I wasn't in the mix of that. And I discovered that in LA, it didn't matter. You could play in a club band at night, you could play in a studio during the day, on the weekend you could play an original band. Nobody cared what you weren't typecast here in LA. So, you know, when I first got to LA, I was playing in a club band because that's what I knew how to do. I put one together, then that fell apart. I got into another one. Got into another one after that. But through it, I started meeting people, some better musicians, and getting work in playing in people's demos in studios, and gradually meeting more and more good people, and eventually starting to make my living playing in original music. Wasn't mine. I had stopped I kind of stopped writing for a long time after that first original band in New York. So I didn't think it was good enough. I didn't realize yet that I was supposed to be a film composer. I had no idea. But gradually that started developing in my mind over a period of years. So by the early 80s, I kind of knew I wanted to try that. And so things started to happen very gradually.
You know, thank you for getting the detail with me with that answer. Now you mentioned about programming and sympathizers, and you mentioned about your mom playing the piano, and you have the keyboard and you have the organ. For listeners, myself, I'm a musician myself. I play bass guitar for a 5 string. Been playing for about 25 years. Some of my other staff are musicians as well. Like you, my mom grew up in music. My late mother. We have a lot of fans that play music and into music. Explain the different mindset of playing the piano. Do you have a keyboard, a synthesizer, and the organ? Is it a different mindset? Or for you, because every musician is different. Does your mindset change when you playing one to another, or is it just the same for you?
It's not the same at all. Very different. What I try to do is become the person, like if I'm using a guitar sound on a keyboard, I don't want to sound like a keyboard player playing the guitar. I want to sound like a guitarist. One of the great things that happened to me during the years I was playing, especially original music, in studios and live. I get to work with some great musicians, some really great musicians, and I got to absorb what they did. I got to listen to great drummers and bass players and guitar players and really learn what they did. And so I try to channel that kind of person when I'm playing that kind of sound. You can't, I know plenty of keyboard players that just sit there and play keyboards, and that's all they do, and it sounds like a piano player trying to do something, and it doesn't sound legit to me.
Right.
So I try to get into a zone where I'm that guy, the guy that plays that instrument. And it seems to work pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. What is your favorite out of those that I mentioned first, as far as the piano, keyboard, organ, synthesizer? What do you feel the best playing? What do you enjoy?
Well, originally it was acoustic piano, but nowadays I don't play piano anymore. I got arthritis in my hands, and the keyboard, my synthesizer keyboard, is much easier to play. So I'm 100% into that now, and I can put up really good piano sounds and sound like a piano player, but it doesn't hurt my hands as much. And it is different. The touch is different. I really prefer the touch of a real piano because you can be much more nuanced, shall we say. But I can also, when I play on the keyboard, I can fix what I've played within the computer and make it sound exactly like what I want, even if it didn't come out that way originally. So, when I'm composing now, I spend a lot of time with each individual event, making it all be what I want. Sometimes I can do blocks of things all the same, but other times I have to go through note by note and make sure that my touch is right and that it's timed right and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because these synthesizers now are very sensitive, so if you hit it a little harder, the sound is different, or a little softer, the sound is different. And so I have to do a lot of correcting.
Compared to back in the day, about 10, 20, 30 years ago, it was a little more, it was different, where it wasn't as soft to touch, as you would say.
Yeah, I'd say maybe a little longer, but 30 years ago, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now let's go forward to go backward. Coming up, you and I have been speaking since, I believe, the summer. This is, summer months in the making. You and I, when I talked to you in the summer, you were working on the music for the Last Kumite, which is coming out soon. Talk to us about the process that you had to go through to start making the music for this movie, and also how you came about it.
Well, it's really funny. In 1990, I wrote my last film score before now called Breathing Fire, and it didn't do very well. It didn't get released in America, actually. Got released in a few territories, so I saw a little money from it. But for some reason, even though I'd done Bloodsport and KickBoxer, people didn't seem to want to hire me. And so I just ditched the business completely, figuring I was done, and became a teacher. Because I needed a steady income. I was about to get married. I wanted to have a family. I couldn't see supporting a family with no health care and no income,
Right.
or very, very sporadic income. So I gave it up. I became a teacher, and teaching was a very full-time job. I couldn't do much on the side. I did, over a period of some years, put out a couple of individual CDs, but it seems like people didn't want that music so much as they wanted movie music. So at any rate, 4 years ago, I retired from teaching and built the studio I'm sitting in now, and started learning how to do stuff in a 21st century way. And young directors started getting in touch with me, saying they wanted my sound. They loved Bloodsport and KickBoxer so much they wanted my sound. And a guy named Sean Lowe was, I think, maybe the second or third guy that contacted me with this idea of doing the Last Kumite. He had written a script. He sent me the script and seemed good to me. And he started a Kickstarter campaign to raise money, and lo and behold, used me as part of the money-raising campaign. So we're going to bring back the old sound. And they managed to raise enough money to make this movie. They filmed it, and I wrote them a bunch of demos to let them see what direction I was going. They liked it. And I finally got hold of the film and started writing. I was able to use some of the material that I did in the demos. I had to change it a lot because once you get into a picture situation, you got to follow the picture. So it turned out great. I'm really happy with the music. The producers are really happy with the music. I think the fans are going to like the music. So, it's all good.
What were some of the difficulties that you mentioned about learning how to 4 years ago, learning how to make music in a century as opposed to 30 years ago? What were some of the challenges you found yourself dealing with for this movie?
Well, 30 years ago, first of all, I couldn't record at home. I had to store all of my writing just as MIDI data, and then take it into a studio that I had to pay for, with an engineer that I had to pay for, and record on wide tape and mix it and all that old-fashioned stuff. Now, you do it all at home. You can compose and record out of the same program. And I had to learn how to use that program. Now, I first started working with it about 4 years ago, and I got pretty good at putting music in and mixing it, making it sound good. But I hadn't learned how to put a film in the program and sync up to the film, which is complicated. But I'm pretty good at it now. It was a lot of working out the details. Fortunately, I discovered that just about anything I wanted to do, I could find some guy on YouTube demonstrating how to do it. And so I did a lot of learning that way. And, a lot of trial and error, a lot of swearing, a lot of sweating.
Swearing and sweating.
But in the end, it's a lot easier than what I used to do because I can sync right to the film in my computer, and the program will do the work if you know how to tell it how to do the work. So when I watch a scene, I mark places where I want measures to start, or certain events will happen, musical events, and I have to figure out how to get from point A to point B. Well, how many measures is it going to be? What tempos are going to be? Can I have just regular 4/4 bars all the way through? Or if I get to that point B and it's in the middle of a measure, what do I do? If I speed it up or slow it down, does it sound bad? Well, usually yes. In the music I'm writing for fights, you don't want part of it to be at a nice tempo and then it goes slow or too fast. So then you have to put in these kind of what I call odd time bars. It might be a 5/4 bar or a 3/4 bar or something. And then I have to make it sound like there's nothing wrong. Make it sound just like everything's chugging along as normal, which I learned how to do. I used to do that in I did that in Bloodsport and KickBoxer a lot. And people didn't notice except we're really pretty well-trained musicians. The trick is to figure out ways for the instruments to do things that make it sound natural. And composers have been doing that forever. So it's not, that's just part of my job. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm getting a little long-winded here,
No,
but
it's fine. No, you're fine. No, that's what we love to do. We love to hear you explain. You being a professional, being great at what you do, and telling us the details of how you do it, and taking us behind the scenes, how you do things, and we can hear the music. And even if you're a musician or not, you could be a musician, but you don't have the ears. You said that's trained to hear the little nuances, and then when you explain it, hey, this is what happens here, this is what happens there. It's like, oh, okay, now I see what you mean. So that's definitely amazing. What would you say is your favorite score, if I'm using the right word, or favorite track for this upcoming film, The Last Kumite?
um, there are two really long cues at the end of the movie. The movie ends with this big kumite tournament, and the finals is pretty long. It's about 6 minutes, which I couldn't have done in the old days. I would have had to cut it up and do it in separate chunks. But with this technology, I can do it all in one thing. And as the final match is going on, there's other drama going on under the stairs. A whole nother set of things is happening that's cutting back and forth. And I'm really proud of how I made that work. And then near the end of the final fight, our hero gets almost knocked out and has kind of a flashback scene where he's going through all the stuff, the drama that got him there to build up his power. I'm not going to try to give it all away yet. So I had to slow down the tempo and completely go into a different mode and then build it back up to the point where he gets up, recovers, and beats the crap out of the bad guy. So it was a very complicated scene that went on for nearly, as I said, nearly 6 minutes. Really, really proud of that. And then right after that, there's another long scene, nearly 5 minutes, I think, with a whole other set of fights that happen after the kumite is over, between some other bad guys and some other good guys. It's complicated. You'll see it when you see it. You'll get it. But those two cues I'm really proud of. And as I like to compose in the order of the film, I start at the beginning and go to the. I don't like to do the end first or something like that. So by the time I get to the end, I really know the characters. I know the music that goes with the characters, and it's fun to put it all together, And so, and plus, I was much better with the technology by the end. So it was more of a music experience than a technological experience by then for me. So, yeah, I like that. So for the fans out there, when you watch that movie, you wait to the end. It's powerhouse.
I like how you said how you like to go in chronological order, because we know with movies, a lot of times they're not shot. You see the first shot of a movie, the beginning of a movie necessarily isn't the first scene that was shot. It could have been the last. They just end up editing it together. But in your case, you like going in chronological order as the movie is cut from the beginning to the end to get that whole, like, building the story per se. And I understand that.
Right. I understand that they film it in a different order completely. I know that. But when it gets to me, now I got to make sense of what's on the screen. And I got to, have a build from beginning to end.
Now, do you know of other composers that don't go by the chronological order of the movie, the final cut, that where they go piece by piece, like the middle and the end?
I actually don't. I don't. I'm so out of touch with the business. I don't. I know a few young composers that are fans of my old music, but I haven't talked to them about how they actually compose. So I don't know.
Do you feel, how do you feel, Paul, within yourself personally? Do you feel like a rejuvenation, and do you feel more complete? Because you mentioned how you took time off, I believe, doing research about 20 years or so. You just
It was more like 30 years.
30 years. 20, 30 years where you just took a hiatus, you just, I'm
So
done.
I had another job and I did it. And I didn't think that this would come. My wife seems to think that this was a bucket list item for me to do another movie. And she's probably right. And it was so much work while I was doing it, I'm going, oh, this is probably going to be it, one and done. But almost as soon as I finished, I said, I'd like to do another one. So we shall see about that. The producer of this movie wants me to do his next project. And another producer I was talking with before Kumite came up is doing a documentary right now that she wants me to do the music for. So there's stuff on the horizon, but I'm not young anymore, and how much I can do is going to depend on my health and how much energy I have. So we'll see.
What is what is the mindset? Do you have any? You watch sports or composers or athletes or anyone? Do you have like a pregame mindset or a different way to go about getting their mind, getting their body together, as far as going into your work? Do you do any of that before you start composing? Is there any certain things as far as a diet, or, music, meditation?
Um, yeah, I don't meditate. Um, I like to know what I'm up against, so I like reading the script ahead of time. I like doing some musical demos ahead of time. I read the script and try to figure out, well, what kind of music would go with this character? What kind of music would go with that character? I try to come up with some themes that might underlie certain either scenes or character development stuff. So I like preparing musically, even if I don't use too much of it. I like getting a palette of sounds that I'm going to use that seem to go with the film. Because, now with my synthesizers, I've got just thousands and thousands of sounds. Well, which ones am I going to choose? So I like to try to do some of that ahead of time. I can't do it all. And then once I get the film, then I just try to get into the zen of the film. Um, I don't want to. I don't want to try to impose my will on the film. I want the film to tell me what to do. So I try to just organically get in there with it, be part of it. It's hard to explain. The second film I did, I remember sitting there I just couldn't make my mind come up with something. It just wouldn't work. I was trying too hard. And I, at that point, learned how to kind of shut my brain off. I don't know how to explain it. The thinking part of my brain, I had to shut it off and let the music part come out on its own. And ever since, it's done that. And I can't explain where it's coming from or how or why, but I've learned not to overthink it. It organically comes out of me after I watch a scene long enough. I start getting into the emotion of the scene, or I start getting into what should be the emotion of the scene that isn't there, and then I can provide it musically. So
I think
that's
you explained it well. You explained it well. You just go with the flow instead of overthinking or thinking too much. You just go with it. So
that's right.
I love that. And you saying it shows how much you hear the word humble a lot, because a lot of times you can think of a composer is my music. I'm making it for you. I'm making it. This is my music for this film, and you're saying no. It's the reverse. I'm not imposing what I want. I'm letting the film talk to me, and the scenes
Yeah,
talk to me, so I can give it back.
yeah.
That's your way of thinking it. Yeah. Do you have? And I know you say you've been out of touch, but I know you watched movies in your lifetime. Are there any favorite composers that you've had growing up or even now? Other composers' music that you enjoy?
Well, I was kind of influenced a lot by a guy named Ennio Morricone, who was an Italian great composer. He did a few things in America. He did those spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood, if you remember those. He was just really over the top dramatic. Um, and I really loved that. I love John Williams of all people, but I can't do what he does because he's an orchestra composer and a wonderful composer, and more than that, a wonderful conductor. He can just come up with stuff that's so great. I'm really bad at remembering names. There's lots of people that I really have liked over the years in film. A couple of my young fans are composing the music for Cobra Kai now. I really like what they're doing. Zach Robinson and Leo, I forget his last name. These guys are really cool. Like them.
Now, we do have a few fan questions. Bringing up a couple composers fans did want me to ask you about. Danny Elfman, who did the music, Batman 1989, the Batman theme. Also, Hans Zimmer.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Danny Elfman's. I think he's really good. He gets a bad rap from the musicians sometimes, the orchestral musicians.
Oh, wow.
He's not trained classically, and I don't think he can read music particularly well. But he's a wonderful dramatic composer. And the movies you mentioned are good. His scores are good, but I would suggest that anybody that likes his music find a movie called Dark Man.
I love that movie. Yes,
because that movie would not have been any good without his score. He made that movie, and to me, that's a pretty powerful thing that a composer can do. Take a movie that's kind of so-so and make it into a really good movie. So yeah, Danny Elfman, I'm really fond of. Hans Zimmer, I'm not a big fan, but I don't really particularly want to sit here and talk about why or anything like that.
It's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who has a big raft of people that work under him, and a lot of what's said to be Hans Zimmer is written by the people that work for him. And I've been told that he can't read music. I don't know. Don't know if that's true. I mean, he's early on did some really nice synthesizer scores that I did like Driving Miss Daisy. I thought that was good. But what do I know? Just opinion.
And we appreciate you answering those questions. You mentioned about Darkman, which I love. Definitely, the music makes the movie. Your scores, and we'll go in the back. We'll go 30 years ago. Bloodsport, 1988. I have the VHS, kids. I remember what it was like before VCRs. Called, I know they was just called video cassettes, not VHSs. I had the VHS of Bloodsport. It was one of my favorite movies. You mentioned how music makes the movie, and I feel that's the same for Bloodsport, which I love the movie. But the Kumite scenes, the fights, I remember the scene where we called it the E Honda guy, the heavy set. I don't know, Street Fighter. The E Honda guy was a heavy set Asian guy that was in the Kumite, and the part in Jean Claude did the little low blow, and like that sound. Always looked us up, did the score with just with that, and the guy, I guess he was Jamaican. He was like the little skinny black dude that kept running around, and the music you did, everything matched the character. The great Chung Lee, Bolo Long, everything. Paco, who was also Tung Pao and Kickboxer. Everything you did made those scenes, because if you took away your music, you'll see a fight, but they'll begin to just didn't add the character, add the flavor. And that's how I always felt with your music way before I even started doing broadcasts. It was like, look, this music goes with this guy and this the other guy, and then Bolo comes out with the chest, and then that music, and what's my man named, the American guy, Jean Claude's best friend in the movie, him.
Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson.
Ray Jackson.
Him. Yes. So even we'll get to with Forrest Whitaker and the other guy trying to chase Jean Claude through the streets, everything just made sense and went with the character. So I say all that to say, with Bloodsport, this is your first movie.
Well, I'd done a couple things before that, but it was my first real head-to-tail movie by myself.
Were you nervous? What were your thoughts going into it?
Well, I wasn't particularly nervous because it wasn't. It was not a high-budget movie. It was not expected to do anything. The business people at Canon didn't like it. I knew the producer, which is how I got the job. He didn't put any pressure on me. You know, he came over to the house a couple times and listened to what I was doing, and he liked it. He let me record it. He put it in the movie. He didn't complain. He liked it. So the only pressure I had was trying to get it done in time. I didn't have a lot of time. I think I had something like 5 weeks, and I had to spend 2 weeks in the studio recording it. So I wasn't sleeping much. You know, I was working 16-hour days, 7 days a week to compose it. Looking back, it's a miracle I got it done, but I was young and I had some energy. So, you know, yeah, and I can't tell you how I came up with that stuff. It just came out. I just started at the first scene, and that melody that I used the whole way through just popped out, and I ran with it.
A couple names associated with the Bloodsport soundtrack. Your thoughts? Michael Bishop.
I did not know him. I still don't know him. Here's a story for you. Originally, I found a couple of songs written by friends of mine, one that would have filled the space where his song is, and another one that would have been the end credits. But Canon wouldn't pay for them. Canon wouldn't give me the money to produce them. And Michael Bishop's girlfriend worked in the Canon music office, and she snuck that song in without me knowing anything about it. And I don't know if Michael got any money up front for it. I don't think he did. But he's probably made it back now, because Bloodsport has paid very good royalties over the years. So, you know, it worked in the film. I'm not going to say it didn't. It just was kind of unexpected and came out of nowhere for me. Looking back, I might have been able to convince my friends to just put their demos in the movie and nobody would have known. But I wanted them to be produced properly, and I wanted them to be sung by somebody strong. I mean, I had to pay quite a bit to get Stan Bush to sing my songs.
Yeah, I was about to mention him as well, Stan Bush.
Well, by the way, he's got 2 songs in the Last Kumite. So we're back in a team, as it were.
Now, you mentioned about I guess you would call the Paul Hertzog family, or the tree. You know, you watch sports and they have, like, you know, the Bill Belichick tree. You know, the different coaches that he worked under him. Your tree, you have Bloodsport. We'll get to KickBoxer in a second, and the Last Kumite. Music-wise, Stan Bush, you worked with on Bloodsport. Now, 30 years later, he's with you in the Last Kumite. Jean Claude Van Damme, Bloodsport, KickBoxer. Now, oh man, if I say his name wrong, I apologize. Paco, and he also played Tung Po in KickBoxer, the main guy.
No, you got that wrong. Paco wasn't Paco played by, I'm not sure. Michel Kisi played in Bloodsport, and he played Tong Po in KickBoxer, and he's in the Last Kumite.
Yep,
quite a bit older. I'm not sure. I don't know if he played Paco.
Yeah, from right, because I watched the interview with him in. You wouldn't even realize it. He played Paco. He just added, I think he said, the makeup.
He was the guy. He was the guy that in Bloodsport that got his leg broken.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Not Paco. That was the one that Bolo Long snapped his leg. Yeah. I apologize for that. What was his name? And he said most people didn't I didn't even realize to this year that was him, because he
Yeah.
mentioned how he added the makeup and the ponytails. Like, oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Now, not sure if you noticed or not, in Bloodsport they did an edit where when he played Bloodsport on TV, there some the edited version they don't show his leg getting the bone coming out. He will edit it out, and also some of the score. But on the
I
VHS release, you get to see it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that version.
Yeah, when the kid on TV, they always editing stuff and messing up your music and everybody else's music. So if you watch Bloodsport on TV, the scene when Bolo does the kick, they just pan to his face and they show the leg, and they just show Michelle. Am I saying his name right? Michelle.
Michelle
Yeah,
Keesey.
they show Kesey's face. But on the original version, you actually see the leg snap, the bones, and then the girl, Jean Claude's girlfriend, and then you see the face. So I apologize for that. Not Paco. That was I don't even know his name. I have to look it up. I forgot. But he's in all three. He plays Wolf in the Last Kumite. Did you have any interactions with any of the actors, with Bolo, the great Bolo Long, Kesey, Jean Claude? Did you have any interactions with them?
I met Jean Claude a few times. Didn't get close to him, but he was very, very nice to me. No problem. I met Michelle. I went to a screening of KickBoxer that he and Jean Claude were also watching. And I remember walking. I don't remember what studio it was. We were at a studio lot somewhere in LA. And I was walking outside and ran into Michelle outside. And he said, "Did you like me in the movie?" And I said, "You were in the movie?" And he said, "Yeah, I was Tong Po." And I said, "What? What?" Which was really cool.
I thought the same thing watching the interview. I was like, "That's him."
Nobody told me until he did, which was cool.
Oh, now this you've been very honest, which I love about you. I gotta ask you, you're the OG of the kickboxer. Now we know there were sequels. Did you watch any of the sequels at all, or did you not care because you wasn't doing the composing for it?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not understanding what you're asking.
For Kickboxer, you did the first one. Now there were sequels. There were two.
Sequel. Okay, I didn't understand sequel. I was not asked to do anything. The producer of those movies just sold off the rights. And I guess if I'd been a better businessman, I would have figured out how to get in touch with the people that were doing it. But from what I understand, those movies weren't all that great anyway. So who knows?
Oh.
It just they didn't come looking for me, and I didn't know how to go looking for them, I guess.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, Kesey, of course, coming back as Tom Powell was great, but other than that, I mean, there's a kickboxer. One of my staff members sent me. They did one a few years ago with Jean Claude. I think it's called Vengeance. That was on Netflix.
Yeah, I started watching that on Netflix, and after about 2 minutes, I shut it off. It was terrible. I couldn't watch it. Now I'll tell you what I did watch. This TV series that Jean Claude did called Jean Claude Van Johnson. Have you seen that?
No, I've heard of it, but I haven't.
That's great. You should watch that. It's really good.
I'll put it here to watch it.
Jean Claude is not afraid to be silly, and it makes him like a much more likable guy. He's really funny, and that series is good. You should watch it.
I mean, I'm put in my notes now to watch that. Let's go to Kickboxer. A year later, Jean Claude plays in Kickboxer. You get to work your second film with him and Kesey. Now you have Bloodsport under your belt. You've done music, of course, before Bloodsport. now that you have one film under your belt, do you go into kickboxing now with more confidence of knowing what to do,
Yeah.
or is it an
Well,
open slate?
See, I actually composed Bloodsport in '87. It was finished in '87 in, I think, May. But Canon didn't release it until '88. They sat on it. So after Bloodsport, I did a couple other movies. Did one called Street Justice and one called Dangerous Love. And all the time I'm learning more and more how to both compose and record for the movies. So by the time I did Kickboxer, I was much better. So I think I like the music from Kickboxer a lot better than Bloodsport. I know the fans don't, but I do because I've learned a lot more how to do what I wanted.
So there are fans out there that like Bloodsport better than kickboxing.
Oh yeah.
I love both, but now you
I'm not saying I like Kickboxer the movie better than Bloodsport the movie. I like them both. I'm just talking about the music part.
yeah, the music. That's what I meant. Yes. Yeah, I didn't know that. Did any of the fans say to you why they preferred the music of Bloodsport over kickboxing?
Well, not necessarily. I'm just telling. I can tell you by the royalties I get.
Yeah, right.
I get twice as much, or more than twice as much, from Bloodsport as from Kickboxer. So I can tell by how much it plays around the world who likes what.
If you just your thoughts. Some of the famous scenes in Bloodsport and Kickboxer is the training scenes, where you have Bloodsport, you have the bamboo sticks, and he's training or what have you. The guy Tanaka. In Kickboxer, you have the bamboo tree and him kicking the I don't know if that was a melon or the fruit and kicking the stick and in the pads. For you, what would you say is your favorite training montage out the two?
Probably the one in Kickboxer that's called Advanced Training.
He's outside.
And fans really like that, that particular piece of music. Although they also like the slow one at the beginning, called Tai Chi. Those two get a lot of airplay. Let's put it that way. So I know that people are listening to it and liking it.
You let's talk about you personally with music. Christmas time is just around the corner. You hear nothing but Christmas music, which can be very annoying. So do you have any favorite Christmas songs? And do you have any that you don't like?
Not really. Not really. I mean, I, as a kid, played lots of those songs, but I'm not attached too much one way or the other.
Yeah. Favorite songs in general. You love music. You grow up around music. What's some of your favorite songs? This in general. You mentioned rock and roll. What's some songs that Paul loves?
Well, I'm pretty esoteric in my tastes. As I grew up a classical musician, and then I had a kind of brief rock and roll time. Then I got into jazz, especially jazz of the 50s and 60s. I still listen to. I listen to selected things. I mean, in rock and roll field, I really like Peter Gabriel and Steely Dan, which maybe aren't mainstream for a lot of people.
Stuff.
I love a lot of jazz stuff, Miles Davis and John Coltrane and quite a few others. And I'm still a big classical music fan. So I listen to all kind of different things. hard to pin it down. I mean, I'll tell you, it was the Beatles that got me interested in rock and roll in the first place, which didn't come when they first started. It came around the time they put out Revolver, and I started listening to that, some of that stuff, and I went, it was pretty cool. And then when I went off to college, you know, in those days, everybody, all the young kids, listened to music. When a Beatle album came out, everything stopped. And Sgt. Pepper came out when I was a freshman in college, and I remember everybody stopped and listened to that over and over for days. Same thing with a Bob Dylan record when it came out in those days. I mean, I haven't followed Bob Dylan since, but he was a big deal when I was in college. And, you know, I listened to a lot of pop music then, because pop music wasn't the way it is now. It was pretty adventuresome. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, come on.
Yeah.
You know, Jimi Hendrix came out with Purple Haze. Well, what's that? Man, that is amazing. Where did that come from? And I still can't explain. But it moved music ahead like one big giant leap. So, you know, I grew up at a time when some really incredible stuff was going on. I mean, John Coltrane was still alive and playing some of the wildest music ever. All kinds of, I don't know, there's just all this influence from different directions. So pinning it down to one thing is pretty hard.
That's totally fine. It's good to have a broad horizon of different music and different influences. If you could compose music for any director, what would be your dream music or dream director or dream film that you would love to compose music? Did you mention the bucket list that your wife mentioned? Who would it be?
At this point, I have no idea. You know, I don't know really what's out there anymore. I haven't been following it that much. You know, I'm 75 years old, and I don't have much time for bucket lists to be fulfilled. And, you know, if somebody comes along with something and offers it to me, that'd be great. I seem to be really good at these martial arts movies, and I don't know why. You know,
your calling.
I'd love to work with Jean Claude again. And we'll see. I mean, I got in touch with through a mutual acquaintance with a guy named Scott Adkins.
Yes.
I'd love to work with him, and he says he'd love to work with me. Let's see what happens. I'm waiting to see when people hear what I've done on the Last Kumite. I'm waiting to see what happens. Are they going to really like it, or are they going to say, "Oh, the guy's too old and this isn't any good"? I think it's pretty good, but I can't control what the fans think.
Is there a release date? I haven't seen one yet. Do you know of an actual release date yet for the Last Kumite?
The last thing the producer said was they're looking at May. Okay. But there's no firm date yet that I know of. There's a lot of business stuff they have to do yet.
Okay. And that answers my next question of would it be, and a lot of people wondering, will this be in theaters or will it be streaming? I'm sure that's a part of the business.
It looks like it's going to be probably streaming. Mm-hmm. It looks like, but I can't tell you for sure, because originally they said they were going to do theater in some countries and streaming in others. Last I heard, it was probably going to be streaming everywhere, but you know, these things might change. I just don't know. You know, it's going to depend partly on how business people react when they see the film. You know, are they going to really love it, or are they going to say, "Well, let's just stick this on Netflix and see what happens"? I don't know. We'll see. I'm not in daily contact about that. You know, I was in daily contact with the producer about music when I was writing it, but now I'm done. So now it's they're doing the business, which is fine. I don't want to do the business. I'll find out eventually. I mean, I still have some business aspects I have to do, you know, and I want to get the soundtrack prepared. I mean, for release. I'm going to get it out there, but I can't get it out there before the film comes out. So I'm going to have it ready to go, and I'm doing trying to figure out what to do. I don't know if they're going to be actual physical CDs. Not very many people buy them anymore. So I don't know yet. I'm in some discussions.
I was gonna ask that to close this off, and thank you for your time too. That was gonna be a question that we had for you, is with you being a film composer and loving music, what is your thoughts on the transition of music? A lot of things, even with movies, physical media is dying. Video games, physical, where you had the LPs and you had the 8-tracks and the CDs and the cassette tapes, and now everything's digital. You just have a click, download it. So what is your thoughts as a composer, as a professional, on how music is now? Do you prefer the physical media or do you prefer the digital?
I still prefer the physical, and I like CDs. Actually, I know a lot of people are getting into vinyl again, but personally, I prefer the sound of the digital sound. It's cleaner, and to me, it can have more impact of a different sort than vinyl. You know, people say that vinyl has more impact. In some ways, it does. But you know, Bloodsport came out on vinyl. I put it on my record player and took it off instantly because it sounded terrible. But I think it was maybe my record player. So I went to a young composer friend's house. We played it there. It sounded better, but it had a lot of crackles and pops in it, and it was right out of the package. It hadn't been played before. I don't know, but I like CDs, and with streaming, I find I don't listen much to music if it's only on streaming. Although I guess sometimes I will listen on my music computer. I actually find things on YouTube and listen to them. All kinds of different things. So I do some. But, you know, I like listening in the car. And my wife loves streaming, so she's got all kinds of stuff on her phone. So when we're in the car, she can plug it in and we can listen to all kinds of stuff. The only stuff I have on my phone is my own music. And not very much of it, just stuff that I stuck there to listen to it somewhere else. So, you know, I miss having a CD player in the car. The car I drive mostly has a CD player, and I listen to stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I prefer CDs myself. I believe 2016 is the year manufacturers stopped making CD players for cars, and now they don't even make aux cables, auxiliary cables anymore in cars. So everything's wireless and touched, and that's okay. I still have CDs sitting over here. I still have CDs and cassette tapes. I still like the physical media of it. As you said, the sound digitally is cleaner, but just to have the physical touch of a cassette tape, of a CD, and a vinyl, I prefer as well. Now, Paul, you've been great here on Under the Mats Radio. From our research, you do not do a lot of interviews, and we thank you for your time for this exclusive Skype interview. Fans watching this on YouTube or other platforms, you've watched an interview with Paul Hertzog. This man is he's retired, but he's a former educator. You did teach, if I'm correct, English and music theory. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He's a teacher. He's an educator. He's a film composer. He prefers CD. He doesn't like the crackles and pops and nicks and queets of the LP. This man has done all the movies that we know and others. Please check out The Last Kumite that will come out sometime next year. Paul will be working on the documentary scene and the movie scene. This man is very honest and very chill and very straight to the point and laid back. He does not, please do not ask him to download anything because the only music on his phone is his own. So that's pretty much how it is. Paul, we thank you very much for your time. Hopefully next year when the Last Kumite comes out and we get to watch it, we can bring you back on and we can talk about our thoughts and let us know what you have upcoming in the future.
Sure.
Right.
That's good.
And let us know how to reach you or get a hold of anything that you've done for soundtracks or any projects you have upcoming.
Okay. I do have a website, but I'm very bad at updating it. But I need to get in there and do that. So I'll try to do that. And I'm on Facebook.
All right. Paul, thank you much for your time. Please hold on. I'm hit the record button to end it and hold on for a second afterwards. Hey, everybody, this was Paul Hertzog, great film composer and educator. Please check him out at the Last Kumite coming up next year. Date to be announced. And listen to his old music, his older music, Bloodsport, KickBoxer. Download Find Breathing Fire. Find my chauffeur. Find Waking the Dragon. All the great things that he's done besides the movies that we mostly know him for. Please check out his work. Paul, thank you for your time.